For 1,825 days, I had been his hands, his feet, his memory. For 5 years, I had sacrificed every piece of myself on the altar of his tragedy. My world had shrunk to the 4 walls of our home, to the rhythm of his medications, to the scent of antiseptic that clung to everything I owned. I was halfway up the stairs, a tray of his evening medical supplies balanced carefully in my hands, when I heard it. A voice from behind his closed office door. Leo's voice. But it wasn't the voice I knew, the weak, pained murmur that had become the soundtrack of my life. No, this voice was vibrant. It was strong, it was cruel. He was laughing, a deep, hearty laugh that I hadn't heard since before the mountain. "Don't worry, babe," he said, the words slicing through the silence. "She's basically my life support system. And the best part? I'm the one with the power to pull the plug." The tray slipped. It fell from my numb fingers, a cascade of plastic and glass shattering on the hardwood floor. The sound echoed, sharp and violent, into the sudden, suffocating silence from behind the door. That was the moment my world didn't just crack, it atomized. The man I had given my life to, he wasn't a tragedy, he was a lie. Before we uncover how I turned this ultimate betrayal into the coldest revenge, we want to know where you're watching from. We love our Whispers of Revenge family around the globe. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. You won't want to miss what happens when a woman with nothing left to lose decides to take everything back. To understand the depth of his deceit, you have to understand the height of my devotion. You have to go back. 6 months earlier, my life was a meticulously crafted routine of care. My days began not with the scent of yeast and sugar, but with the precise measurement of nutritional supplements. My hands, which once danced with dough and sculpted delicate pastries, now crushed pills into applesauce and charted fluid intake. I remember one morning I was helping him with his physical therapy exercises, my arms straining to support his legs as he groaned. The effort was immense, a daily testament to my commitment. After, as I wiped the sweat from his brow, he looked at the breakfast I'd prepared. "The salt, Clara," he said, his voice laced with a familiar weary disappointment. "It's the table salt again, isn't it? It's the little things. Attention to detail. That's what separates good care from this." I just nodded, my apology swallowed by the lump in my throat. Later that day, I found myself staring at a faded folder tucked away in a drawer. Inside was the business plan for The Rising Loaf, a ghost of a life I almost lived. It was filled with sketches of display cases, recipes I'd perfected, a dream rendered in ink and paper. Leo wheeled himself into the room and saw me looking at it. A flicker of something, annoyance, crossed his face before it was replaced by pity. "It's for the best, Clara," he said, his voice soft, patronizing. "That little hobby would have just stressed you out. You have more important things to worry about now." He was right, I told myself. He was my purpose. His mother, Eleanor, certainly agreed. She would sweep into our house once a week, a hurricane of Chanel No. 5 and passive aggression. Her sharp eyes would miss nothing, a speck of dust on the mantelpiece, a faint wrinkle in my shirt. "You look worn out, dear," she said during one visit, her perfectly manicured hand patting my own, which was chapped and dry. "You must take care of yourself. Perhaps it's time we considered a professional facility for Leo. It would be a kindness to you." She framed it as a gift, a release from my duties, but her eyes told a different story. They saw me as a temporary solution, one that was beginning to show its wear. I tried to fight back in my own quiet way. A week later, I found an article about a new specialist in spinal cord recovery, a pioneer in experimental treatments. I brought it to Leo, my heart fluttering with a fragile hope. "Look, honey," I said gently, "maybe we could just get a second opinion?" His face, which had been placid, hardened into a mask of deep hurt. "A second opinion?" he repeated, his voice trembling with manufactured pain. "What, Clara? You don't trust Dr. Miller, the man my own mother vetted for me? Do you think I enjoy being a burden like this? Your doubt, it hurts me more than my legs ever could." He turned his face away, a single tear rolling down his cheek, and just like that, I was the villain. My hope shriveled, replaced by a wave of crushing guilt. That was his true talent. He didn't just control my schedule, he controlled my reality. There was no me time. There was only Leo time. The moment I sat down with a book, his glass of water would be empty. The moment I tried to call a friend, he would need his pillows adjusted. My life was a series of interruptions, a constant state of alert. There was no space left to think or to doubt. The only person who saw the truth was Maya, my best friend. Over coffee that felt like a stolen moment of freedom, she looked at me, her gaze unflinching. "This isn't love, Clara," she said, her voice low but firm. "This is erosion. He's wearing you down to nothing." I tried to defend him. "He needs me, Maya. I made a vow." "Vows are a two-way street," she countered. "Is he cherishing you, or is he just using you as a convenient servant?" I dismissed her words. I dismissed my own exhaustion. I told myself I was a devoted wife, fulfilling the sacred promise of in sickness and in health. I didn't know I was just a fool, walking blindly towards the day my life would end and finally, truly, begin. We're back at the staircase. The sound of the crash still hangs in the air, a ghost of my shattered reality. I hear a muffled curse from behind the office door, then the soft whir of his wheelchair. My heart hammers against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage of bone. I have to move. I have to pretend. My hands shake as I scramble to pick up the scattered pills and broken glass. By the time the door opens, I'm on my knees, my back to him, my face a carefully constructed mask of normalcy. "Clara, what was that noise?" Leo's voice is back, the weak, tired voice of the invalid. I turn, looking up at him from the floor. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I tripped. Clumsy me." He studies my face for a moment too long, his eyes searching for cracks in my performance. I hold my breath, but then he just sighs, a puff of irritation. "Well, be more careful. Some of that medication is expensive." He wheels away, leaving me in the hallway, surrounded by the wreckage of my life. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark of the guest room, the room I'd moved into to be closer in case he needed me at night, and I let the cold, hard fury take root. The next morning I called Maya. My voice wasn't shaking anymore. It was chillingly calm. "It was all a lie," I said, the moment she answered. "He can walk. He's been lying to me this whole time." There was a beat of silence on the other end. Then Maya's voice, low and dangerous. "Where are you?" "I'm at home." "Don't do anything. Don't say anything. I know a guy, a private investigator, and I'm calling my firm's top divorce attorney. We're not just leaving, Clara. We're going to war." After I hung up, I walked into our bedroom, our real bedroom, the one I hadn't slept in for years. On the nightstand was a silver frame holding a photo from our wedding day. Leo was looking at me, his eyes filled with what I had always believed was pure adoration. For a fleeting, agonizing moment, my resolve wavered. A question echoed in the silent room. Was any of it real? Was there ever a time he truly loved me? A tear escaped and traced a path down my cheek. I reached out, my finger hovering over the glass, over his smiling face. Then I thought of his voice on the phone. I'm the one with the power to pull the plug. My hand dropped. I turned away from the photograph, my back straight, the tear drying on my skin. The woman in that picture was dead. He had killed her. And the woman who remained, she was no longer interested in love. She was interested in justice. And so began my new performance. My grief, my shock. I didn't hide them, I weaponized them. I let my eyes grow puffy from crying. I forgot to season his food. I seemed distracted, jumpy, a woman unravelling at the seams. And my audience of two, Leo and his mother, they loved it. They would exchange these small, triumphant glances over my head, convinced their plan was reaching its final stage. They thought I was breaking. They had no idea I was being forged. But playing the part of a broken woman was a dangerous game. One afternoon, I was staring at a photo on my laptop screen. It was Leo, laughing as he fed Sophie a strawberry at an outdoor cafe. A wave of nausea washed over me. I was so engrossed I didn't hear the soft whir of his wheelchair approaching my room. "What you looking at?" His voice, right behind me, made me jump so hard the laptop nearly slid off my lap. I slammed it shut with a panicked reflex. "Nothing," I said, my voice an octave too high. "Just some recipes." He wheeled around to face me, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You slammed that pretty fast for a recipe. Let me see." My mind raced. "It's nothing, Leo, really. A silly pop-up ad." "Clara, show me." My hands were trembling. This was it. It was all over. With a shaking finger, I slowly opened the laptop. By some miracle, the act of closing it had sent the screen back to my browser's homepage, a generic news site. The photo was gone. Leo stared at the screen, then back at my pale face. He seemed to relax, a small, smug smile playing on his lips. "See? Nothing to be so jumpy about. You're getting so paranoid lately, honey." He wheeled away, leaving me shaking, my blood running cold. He thought he'd caught me being unstable. He had no idea he had just signed his own death warrant. The private investigator, a quiet man named Tony, was ruthlessly efficient. Within a week, I had photographs. Pictures of Leo, standing tall and confident, walking into a fancy restaurant hand in hand with a blonde woman. Pictures of them at a discreet hotel on the other side of town. The woman, Tony identified, was Sophie, a holistic wellness consultant he'd apparently been seeing for over 2 years. Then came the financials. Tony uncovered a series of offshore accounts, but there was another layer, a smaller separate account in the Cayman Islands, hidden even from his mistress. On a recorded phone call, Tony had captured Leo assuring Sophie that they would split my inheritance, but the money transfers showed a different story. He was playing her just as much as he was playing me. She was just another tool, another pawn in his and his mother's twisted game. She thought she was his partner in crime. In reality, she was just the next victim in line. But the final piece, the one that turned my cold fury into a white-hot inferno, was an email. An email Tony dug up from a deleted folder on Leo's computer, sent from Leo to his mother, dated the day after his accident 5 years ago. It was short. 6 words. "Mum, it's just a sprain. This is the godsend we were waiting for. Your plan can finally begin. Eleanor." It wasn't just Leo, it was his mother. She wasn't just a critical observer, she was the architect of my 5-year prison sentence. I held the printed email in my hand, the paper trembling. He didn't just break my heart, he stole 5 years of my life. I wasn't just going to leave, I was going to get paid back. With interest, I knew what I had to do. That evening, I approached Leo, my face streaked with carefully rehearsed tears. I told him I wanted to do something special for our anniversary, a party, to celebrate our journey, to thank the friends who had supported us. He was hesitant at first, but when he saw the desperate hope in my eyes, the look of a drowning woman clinging to a single piece of driftwood, he agreed. He thought it was my last, pathetic attempt to hold on to a life that was already gone. He had no idea. It was time to set the stage for the final act. The day of the party arrived, cloaked in a grey, drizzly sky that perfectly mirrored the storm brewing inside me. I moved through my house like a ghost with a purpose, arranging flowers, setting out platters of food. His favourite foods, of course. Every detail was a piece of the performance, a brushstroke on the canvas of my revenge. Our friends arrived, their faces etched with sympathy for me and admiration for Leo. He held court from his wheelchair, a modern-day martyr weaving tales of his recovery and my saintly devotion. "I couldn't have done any of this without her," he said, reaching for my hand. His touch felt like a spider crawling on my skin, but I squeezed back and smiled, the dutiful wife until the very end. Eleanor was in her element, basking in the reflected glory of her heroic son. She moved through the crowd, accepting condolences for their hardship, her face a mask of maternal pride and sorrow. She had no idea she was a guest of honour at her own downfall. Then, at precisely 4:30, as planned, the doorbell rang. But it wasn't a guest ringing. It was the sound of a key turning in the lock. The chatter in the room died down. Every head turned towards the door. It swung open to reveal Sophie, the blonde from the photographs, looking radiant in a sundress, holding a gift basket filled with organic wines and artisanal cheeses. She froze in the doorway, her smile faltering as she took in the room full of people. Her eyes darted to Leo, wide with confusion and panic. "Leo," she stammered, you said you were alone this weekend." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Leo's face had gone the colour of ash. "Sophie," he choked out, What are you doing here?" I stepped forward, my voice clear and calm, cutting through the thick, shocked silence. "Don't be silly, Leo. Aren't you going to introduce us to your friend?" "She's my old physical therapist," he lied, sweat beading on his forehead. "Just dropping off some old equipment." "How thoughtful," I said, my voice dangerously sweet. "It's so kind of her to have her own key. For convenience, I suppose." The air crackled with tension. Eleanor shot up from her chair. "Clara, what is the meaning of this? You are embarrassing your husband." "Am I?" I turned to my mother-in-law, my smile never wavering. I thought we were celebrating honesty, celebrating overcoming adversity. I walked over to the side table and picked up a single sheet of paper from a folder I'd placed there. I held it out to her. "Speaking of overcoming adversity, you've always been so good at planning ahead, Eleanor. I found this. I thought you might want to see it again." She snatched the paper from my hand. I watched her eyes scan the 6 words I now knew by heart. "Mum, it's just a sprain. This is the godsend we were waiting for." The colour drained from her face. The paper fluttered from her lifeless fingers to the floor. "A godsend, Eleanor?" I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper that carried to every corner of the silent room. "Was it a godsend when you watched me quit my job? Was it a godsend when you saw me cry myself to sleep at night, worried sick about your son? Was my life the price of your plan?" She couldn't speak. She just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Then I turned my attention back to the man in the wheelchair, the man who had been the sun my world orbited for 5 agonizing years. All the pity, all the love, all the grief I had felt for him had curdled into something cold and hard and sharp. I took a step closer. He flinched. My voice was quiet, but it was not a request. It was a command. "You've been sitting for 5 years, Leo. I think our guests, our dear friends, they deserve to see you greet them properly. Stand up. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Every eye in the room was locked on Leo, a predator-like stillness falling over the crowd. His mind was screaming no, but his body, after years of secret movement, of unthinking freedom, betrayed him. His muscles tensed. His hands gripped the armrests of the wheelchair, and he pushed. He actually started to push himself up, his legs instinctively preparing to take his weight. He caught himself halfway, collapsing back into the chair with a strangled gasp. But it was too late. Everyone had seen it. The gasp that had rippled through the room before was now a tidal wave of shock and outrage. Our friend Tom, a man who had helped me carry Leo up the stairs countless times, just stared, his mouth agape. His wife, Janet, let out a small, horrified sob. Leo looked around wildly, his mask of the tragic victim finally shattering into 1,000 pieces, revealing the snivelling coward underneath. It's a miracle, he stammered, his eyes pleading. The party, the emotion, I think I can feel my legs. I let out a laugh. It wasn't a happy sound. It was sharp and brittle, like breaking glass. A miracle, I repeated, stepping around his chair to face him. Or perhaps we should thank your mother for orchestrating it. I glanced at Eleanor, who looked as if she might faint. But I wasn't finished. The verbal humiliation was just the appetizer. It was time for the main course. "Excuse me for a moment," I said to our stunned guests. I walked into the kitchen, my steps steady, my purpose clear. I opened the refrigerator and pulled it out. A cake. It wasn't just any cake. It was a work of art, a multi-layered masterpiece of chocolate and raspberry, covered in a flawless dark chocolate ganache. It was the kind of cake I used to dream of creating for my bakery, a symbol of the passion and talent I had buried for 5 years. I had spent the entire previous night crafting it, every whisk of the ganache, every perfectly placed raspberry, a meditation on my rage. I carried it back into the living room and placed it on the coffee table directly in front of Leo. The room was still reeling, but the sight of the cake, so beautiful and out of place in the middle of this emotional carnage, silenced them once more. Written across the top in elegant blood-red raspberry coulis was not "Happy Anniversary." It was a simple damning phrase. The one with the power to pull the plug. Leo stared at the words, his breath coming in ragged, shallow pants. He looked from the cake to my face, and for the first time in 5 years, I saw real, undiluted fear in his eyes. He finally understood. He had underestimated the woman he had tried so hard to erase. As if on cue, the front door opened again. This time it was Maya, and she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a tall, impeccably dressed man with a leather briefcase. He stepped forward, his eyes never leaving Leo's. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folio of documents, bound with a rubber band. With a quiet, deliberate motion, he placed the entire stack directly onto Leo's lap, on top of the legs that had just tried to stand. "Mr. Carter," the man said, his voice calm and professional. "My name is David Chen. I'm Ms. Clara Reed's legal counsel. You've been served." The fallout was swift and merciless. The lawsuit I filed was a legal tapestry woven from Tony's photographs, the offshore bank statements, and the crown jewel, Eleanor's master plan, laid bare in that 6-word email. Faced with irrefutable proof of conspiracy and fraud, Leo and his mother didn't have a leg to stand on. Pun intended. Sophie, seeing the ship was sinking, turned on them in exchange for a lesser charge, detailing their entire scheme with cold precision. Leo and Eleanor were found liable for fraud. The court ordered them to repay every cent they had siphoned from me, plus punitive damages that left them financially ruined. The house, which had been my gilded cage, was sold. My inheritance, which they had seen as their endgame, was fully restored to me. Their names were dragged through the local papers, their story a cautionary tale of greed and deceit. I heard Leo got a job in telemarketing. I heard Eleanor had to sell her Chanel bags. I didn't care enough to find out if it was true. I walked away from the courthouse that day and never looked back. I didn't need to. I was too busy looking forward. 1 year later, the air doesn't smell like antiseptic anymore. It smells of melting butter, caramelized sugar, and the rich, earthy scent of fresh baked bread. It's the smell of my dream. The sign on the glass door in elegant gold leaf reads, "The Rising Loaf." It's a Tuesday afternoon and the bakery is closed to the public, but inside it's full of life. I'm standing at a large marble island, my hands dusted with flour, demonstrating how to properly knead brioche dough. "You have to be firm but gentle," I explain. "You're developing strength, but you don't want to break it." My students, a small group of women from a local shelter, watch me with focused eyes. They are women who, like me, are learning to rebuild. Women who have been told they were weak, who have been broken down. Here, in the warmth of my bakery, we are all finding our strength again. A young woman named Sarah, who barely spoke a word her first week, now laughs as she accidentally flings a cloud of flour into the air. The sound is pure joy. I smile, a real, unforced smile that reaches my eyes. My life is no longer about his schedule, his needs, his lies. It's about this: the weight of the dough in my hands, the warmth of the ovens, the quiet satisfaction of creating something beautiful from simple ingredients. He called me his life support. He was wrong. I was never the support system, I was the power source. And once I unplugged from his toxicity, I finally had the energy to light up my own world. He tried to write me into his story as a footnote. He never imagined I would take the pen and write my own ending. An artist, a business owner, a woman who is finally completely free, because every woman deserves to be the author of her own recipe. Oh. And if you believe Clara got the justice she deserved, hit that like button and subscribe to Whispers of Revenge, because betrayal should never be the final chapter.